Hello, welcome. My name is Adlin Sierra, and I'm the Struggling Learners Coordinator for ICHE. Thank you so much for joining us today for our coffee talk, which we've named Preparing for the Holidays with Struggling Learners. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I'd like to remind you that we are going to be recording tonight's events. You are free to leave your camera on, or you can turn it off, whichever you prefer. But please make sure that your mics are muted. If you have any questions throughout the talk, feel free to write them in the chat or just press the little raise hand button. I'd also like to give a shout out or a warm welcome to our very own Kirk Smith. He's here with us today, and he will be our tech guy behind the scenes. um, all right, our guest speaker for tonight is Krisa Winn from SPED Homeschool, and I'm going to let her share a little bit about herself. So thank you so much, Krisa, for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. Good to see you again, Adlin, and welcome everybody. I'm excited to present tonight. It's getting me kind of in the mode for our holiday season that's coming up, and Thanksgiving's just around the corner, and then Christmas will be here before we know it. So tonight, I really hope to share with you some really practical tips, but also, Adlin and I did this a few years ago, and so I was thinking, how can we make it a little different? I was praying about it and really felt led to share some additional things that I didn't talk about a couple of years ago when we did this. So I hope that that will be an encouragement to you, and I'm excited to share that. Before I get started, I'll just tell a little bit about myself. My background is in education. I was a classroom teacher. I taught kindergartners, third graders, fifth graders for many years. And then I worked as an educational consultant, a special needs consultant for HSLDA. I did that for a little more than a decade. And now you're never too old to learn new things. I am now working with Peggy Ployer, and she has a nonprofit organization called SPED Homeschool, and she just relaunched the spedhomeschool.com website back in the summer and brought me on to help bring in lots of partners and resources for families that are homeschooling children with special needs. So we really want to be like a go-to place for you if you're looking for a curriculum or you're looking for ideas for the holidays. I'm going to share a link with you from our website about that. And Adeline, we didn't really talk about this, and I don't have it prepared right now, but within the next day or so, I'll get resources sent to you. Anything that I might mention during the talk, I'll send that, and you can get that out to folks that were participating tonight. Um, but on our website, I'll just share very briefly. You can go there and register as a member. We have different tiers. We have a free membership. We have some paying memberships too. But it's a place where you can connect mom to mom. You can connect with experts in the field. You can have groups there. We have I don't even know how many different categories of topics, but we have curriculum topics, we have teaching tool topics, we have strategy topics. And so you can go there and access articles, podcasts, videos, all kinds of things to help get you pointed in the right direction. So there's much, much more there, and I encourage you to visit our website, spedhomeschool.com. So thanks for letting me do a little shout out there, Adeline, tonight. But let's go ahead and get going on tonight's topic, where again, I just want to share some practical ideas as we're getting started during this season. I don't know about you, but I'm still kind of stuck thinking that it's September and it's not, and that the time is just flying by. But here we are, middle of November, and I think one of the things that tends to happen, at least in our home, is that this season gets so busy, and so that can be a real stressor for our kids that have special needs, and so one of the things that you might want to do just to kind of help calm things down a little bit is maybe take a break. And it might be too late. If you're someone who has planned out the whole year and you know your end date and you have things planned out, and so this suggestion may not work for you, but a lot of families take off the entire month of December. It's not just Christmas break. We're just going to take off the whole month of December so that you can kind of breathe a little and you don't feel maybe quite the stress of all of the different activities that are going on. Maybe that'll work for you. Maybe it won't. And so if it doesn't, I thought I would talk to you just about some ways that you can adjust or tweak and make things a little less chaotic during this season. So, one thing that you might want to think about doing is just consider dropping one or two subjects. Maybe you want to take a break from your math curriculum or from your science curriculum during the month of December. Um, you have the ability to do that. You don't have to do every single lesson in your curriculum. You just can manage that and cover the topics that your student really needs to learn. I know when I was a classroom teacher, I never really abandoned the curriculum program. I had too much restriction to be able to have that freedom. But I did use my own judgment and skip lessons when I thought, well, this isn't going to be helpful for my students. So you can certainly do that and more as a homeschool mom. Um, you can give yourself and your child some grace during this busy season, and we're going to talk a lot about that later. And then also, this is a time, instead of maybe really staying on track with your curriculum program, to maybe focus on functional life skills, because doing that, you're actually going to be able to hit some of those core subject areas. I'm going to talk about that right now. So, and maybe instead of doing your regular, we've got spelling, we've got English, we've got reading, we've got math, we were going to have to stay on track, guys. We've got to boom, 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 plus do everything else that comes along with the holidays, traveling and concerts and gatherings. Maybe you could do this. You could prep for what you know your kids are going to be encountering over the next several weeks. For instance, food. Food is such a big part of Thanksgiving, of Christmas, of the New Year, because almost all of our gatherings are going to be kind of centered around food, or food's going to be involved. So maybe over the next few weeks, you want to just really take some time and focus on getting your child ready to encounter new foods. Maybe you want to do more cooking together. Sometimes when kids make a dish by themselves or with you, they're a little bit more apt to try it out. Maybe you want to just go to the store and buy some products and some foods that you've never tried before, and just spend some time doing taste test and seeing, do you like this, do you not like this, and you can rank it. You can do a survey of all the family members and tie in some math there. So that's just one example of something that you could do. It's going to help you get ready for this season of the year, but also help you hit science, hit math, all these different areas. Another thing that kids are going to encounter, that especially if they have maybe some social awkwardness, think maybe social emotional skills are kind of weak and difficult for them. Well, you know that this is a time of year where they're going to be greeting people, or people are going to be trying to greet them. So maybe this is a time that you want to focus on that, and you can practice at home before it ever happens. As you're going out, you can say, "All right, we're going to go to the grocery store. Why don't you?" When we get there and we get into the line to pay for our groceries, I want you to just say something to the cashier. Maybe you say, "Thank you for helping us today," or "I like your hair." Just make some type of greeting. And so that's something you could focus on. So this is pulling in language skills. It's critical thinking. What would be appropriate to say? What wouldn't be appropriate to say? So my point here is that these are activities that you can do. They're not in a textbook, but you're still hitting on academic areas. What about wrapping gifts? A lot of our kids really struggle, even if they're in their teens, with folding paper or tearing off tape or cutting. So this could be the next few weeks, you could say, we're going to just focus on doing that, not necessarily wrapping gifts for Christmas right now, but maybe you're just going to focus on cutting out a circle or cutting out a really small circle or practice tearing and those type of fine motor skills. So that's so important, especially for our younger kids. But like I said, I think I know a lot of preteens and teens that still struggle with that folding and making a nice crease, and that can come in really handy in lots of areas, and not just at Christmas time. So that's a good skill to have. So you could focus on that. A lot of people still send out Christmas cards or have their kids write thank you cards. So again, this is a great way to have a language arts activity, but it's not coming out of a textbook. So you could practice addressing an envelope. I remember when my nephew was a senior in high school. Now, he was not homeschooled, he went to public school, but he is a really bright kid, really smart kid. But he was helping his mom one night. This was right around Christmas time. She was sending out some cards to clients, and she asked my nephew to put the stamps on the envelopes. And do you know, as a senior in high school, he put the stamp on the wrong side of the envelope because it wasn't something he'd really ever done before, and he didn't really know. So just think this is a great time to really work on these like very practical functional skills that are going to come in handy over the next few weeks. I think it would be an amazing activity as well to even go into a program like Canva or some other graphic arts tool and have your child create your Christmas cards for this year or some type of thank you card to send to folks that have given gifts. So that's another important skill as well. Um, Another thing I think that we could really work on during this time, if you're choosing to kind of take a break from the regular activities that you do, is just teaching your kids to be really aware and recognizing when someone needs help. There's always there are always things that need to be done during Christmas and Thanksgiving. Just helping our kids and focusing on those really functional practical skills could be really helpful. If helpful, it's teaching social awareness and empathy. And this is such an important thing, especially in the world that our kids are growing up with. And it's such a callous world at times. And an uncaring world and harsh world. But this is a great opportunity, and I'm sure that those of you that are joining us tonight, you do this just naturally. That you're teaching your children that everyone they encounter is an image bearer of God, and that knowledge really needs to impact every interaction that we have with other people. And so, this is just, again, you probably are doing this very naturally in your home, but this is a great time to maybe focus on that and just to think about the least of these. And it's so easy for our kids to be focused on themselves and what they want. And Christmas is coming, and I want this and I want that. And this is a great time to kind of turn that perspective towards others too. So, those are just some ideas, just some alternative activities that you could be focusing on in your homeschool instead of the day to day textbook activities, but you're still going to be accomplishing so much in the academic realm and also in that character building realm too. Um, Going back and just adding a little bit, another layer to this about dropping a few subjects. One thing I wanted to point out and just encourage you all is that you have the freedom to provide accommodations or support for your child, to change the schedule, to replace a lesson. You have the freedom to do that. Even if your teacher's manual doesn't tell you to do certain things, you can make that judgment call as your child's teacher. And so, one thing that you might want to do or consider doing during the next several weeks is to look into like unit studies. I don't know if you already incorporate unit studies, but this is such a great thing to do. So, a unit study is typically when there's a theme. So, I've thought of Christmas around the world. Okay, so that could be your theme, and then under that theme, you are going to teach reading, you're going to teach science, you're going to teach history, you're going to teach um, your English and language arts, all of your core subjects, but they're going to all be tied around Christmas around the world. And so if you were learning about, I don't really have a great example for that theme exactly, but if you were going to learn about how do people celebrate Christmas in Mexico, also you could read a book about that, and that could be your reading lesson for that day. You could have a comparison between the monetary system that they have in Mexico and what we have in the United States. You can make some delicacies and some treats that your kids' age, would be eating around this time of the year. And you can make that together and talk about measurement and tie in math. And so it's just unit studies are just such a great way to really cover get a really good bang for your buck because it's so much fun, it's engaging, and there are lots of great resources to help you find those ideas, and a lot of times they're even free. I know that I found something, and I'll share this link with you. It's from Freedom Homeschooling, and they have free Christmas unit studies, and so I'll share that link with Adeline so she can get that out to you. There are literature studies. That's another thing you could do. So that's going to be similar to a unit study, but instead of having maybe a theme necessarily, you're going to be studying based on a book. Okay. And so there are lots of opportunities for that. I noticed because I'm on her email list that Sarah McKenzie at Read Aloud Revival, she's doing Christmas school. It does cost a little bit. It's $47, but it's supposed to be open and go. You don't need anything. You don't have to do anything. She's got it all laid out for you. So that might be something to look into. It looks like a lot of fun. And she has such great recommendations for literature. One thing that I love to do, sometimes my intentions are a lot more. Um, my intentions are a whole lot better than what I actually carry out, but I love doing Advent studies with my kiddos and my family. I'll usually have a couple of different things, and sometimes we have to do 2 or 3 lessons in in one night because I get behind or we get busy. But I love those, and there are a lot of great ones again that you can find for free. So I would, just Google interactive family devotions for Advent, and you'll come up with lots of different options. And ones that I've used in the past are going to have scripture tied in that you can share as a family, and they'll have discussion questions, and they might even have like an art activity or a cooking activity or something, and it's not overwhelming. It's just one night might be, or one day might be a cooking activity, and the next day might be, here's a great story that goes along with the lesson that we're sharing. So check those out too. Those are great alternatives for this time of year as well. And then I wanted to share this because this is this is so hard, but I think that we can just be real here and say that sometimes the holiday season is going to be challenging. And so I just want to encourage you to extend grace to yourself and to your kids during the season. Um, you know, you need to really just reconcile that, hey, my this is my kiddo and I love my kiddo, and but this is what he's facing, or this is what's hard for him, and I need to deal with it. I need to face it. Sometimes my go-to is to bury my head in the sand, and I don't want to deal with things. And then I'm not prepared when I encounter something, especially when it's during a special time of year. And that it's not just Christmas, but just all through the year. And so let's just talk about this for just a few minutes. Just some things that you guys might be facing as families that have kids with that are exceptional learners, that have neurological differences, that just have challenges. So sensory overload is a big one, and a lot of our kiddos have been diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, which is it has to do with your senses, in a big way. I mean, some kids literally don't know where they're at in space. Some kids, a slight touch feels very aggressive, and so that's all out of whack. That sense of touch is all out of whack, and so um, textures really bother them. So you can see right away that entering Thanksgiving, holidays, there are lots of opportunities to be in situations where there are a lot of people, which can be overwhelming for some children. It's going to be an opportunity to have lots of smells that we might love. Like I've got my candle going over here. I love my candle, but some kids that might just be like, oh, I can't, my system can't tolerate that. New smells, sounds. I love to have Christmas music or I love hearing bells jingle, but for some children that could be overwhelming to them. Even new clothes. And we talked about this the last time we did this a couple of years ago. And we talked about this session about getting ready and getting through the holiday season, but new clothes can be hard. I know there are some kids that they don't want to wear socks or that much less tights, and they don't want to wear a belt. They want to just have their stretchy pants on. And so these are all things that you just really need to face head on and figure out how are we going, number one, are we going to just make the most of it and get through it? Or do you have a plan? How are we going to address that? Okay, same for food. And like I mentioned earlier, food is such a big part of Christmas, but let's empathize with the difficulties that our kids might have with food aversions. Um, and really be careful too, especially when grandma and grandpa might be critical. Well, why isn't he eating any turkey? He should be eating turkey. All he has is a roll and green beans. That's in. So we need to be prepared for that and think about how are we going to handle that, um, and also just be really gracious. I know, even in our own family, that I had to really repent the last time we were with family because um, I made a joke of my child's food aversions, and I may have made her feel uncomfortable because I tried to laugh it off when it's not really a laughing matter. You think about not, being really overly picky about food. That's a daily thing. It's every day. It's really not a laughing matter. And so we just need to be extending grace to our kids that are going through that. Not meeting expectations of family and friends. Sometimes, you're homeschooling, you may have extended family that they just don't get it and they don't understand that. And so, um, just going into those situations, I think it's good to be ready for it, but also determine in your heart that you're going to be about making memories and not causing angst and confrontation and making things uncomfortable, but instead to filter that a different way. And we're gonna talk about that. Um, Meltdowns happen. Sometimes we have kids that we don't even know what would set them off, but they get set off. And so um, just various changes. And a lot of times when the schedule changes, I was just encouraging you, hey, change the schedule up for December. Well, that might rock your child's world. They may not like that at all. And so you might have to change things up. But if you do decide to change things up for your own sanity and for giving your other children a break, you might have to spend a little bit of time and say, hey, Sam, we're going to do things differently for the next 2 weeks, but this is what it's going to look like. We're not going to use our textbooks, but we're still going to do math, but this is how it's going to look. And so, instead of having the attitude of just get over it, we all need a break, no, let's acknowledge it. Let's prepare for it, because even good things like a field trip to go see the Nutcracker or go to a musical and hear a symphony play, and your child might be really excited about it, but when he really gets there, he may be going, aha, mom, I can't stand this. I don't like this. These people are too close to me. And so we just, as much as you can do to prepare your child for things like that, even things they're looking forward to, try to think ahead and think, how can I get my child prepared for this situation that they're going to encounter? Maybe you want to go to the website that is sponsoring a concert that's coming up, and just have your child sit with you, and you can take them on a little tour and say, hey, this is the building we're going to be in, and look, there are lots of seats, and we'll try to have you sitting next to brother, but you might have to sit by someone you don't know. I don't know. Just try to prepare them as much as you can. And then also just maybe letting them listen to the music ahead of time, or bringing some sound canceling headphones, even though you're going to a concert. So these are just things, instead of maybe this maybe not be the time for what did they I don't usually say this, like, buck it up, buttercup, like, come on, get it together. This may not be the time for that. With our kids that have special needs, we want to acknowledge what they're dealing with, and support them and help them. This is also a time where you might be going through a time of grief or loss. Maybe there's a broken relationship or a difficult economic times. Um, you know, I think we need to let ourselves grieve, that things might look differently than they are, and you might need just a few days as a mama just to be able to say, you know what, I just need to spend a little bit more time with the Lord this morning. I need to be prepared for this, and I just extend grace to yourself, and know that when you're going through difficult times like that, that again, I'm just speaking for myself, that sometimes I just pull up my bootstraps and I'm just going to keep on going, and that's great, and maybe your family needs that for a certain time, but there is some time where you really as a mama need to process those losses, that maybe your best friend doesn't speak to you anymore. That's hurtful. It's painful. Maybe your husband lost his job. You're making it work and the Lord's providing, but it's still hard. And so give yourself grace. So I hope that makes sense. And then as I was just kind of thinking through those challenges, this is where the Lord brought to mind Philippians 4:8 through 9. And so I'm just going to read that. Um, I don't even know this is the NIV. But it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So I just kind of want to break this down a little bit and have it apply to homeschooling through the holidays, believe it or not. Okay. So, one thing I was thinking about when it says, fix your thoughts on what is true and what's honorable, right, and pure, lovely, admirable. Let's go back to, and I've got this picture of a family sitting at a holiday meal, and I'm thinking about, grandma being critical of what your child is eating or not eating, or what they're wearing or not wearing. And I just want to encourage you ahead of time to be thinking about that situation and filtering it through what is true. So you can see the reality. The reality is my child has hardly any food on his plate. Okay. But when we filter that through the lens of what God says, what is true, what's honorable, what's lovely, what's pure. The truth is my child is growing in this area. It's something that we're addressing. It's something that we're working on. That's the truth. The truth is, she has food on her plate, or he has food on his plate. It may not be up to grandma's standards, but he does have food on his plate. So, yay, that's a win. Um, and he's growing. He's not sick. He's not unhealthy. He's meeting milestones. He's growing. And he wanted to pray over our meal tonight because he's grateful. That's the truth. So the truth is you have a healthy child, you have a growing child, you have a child who is learning, you have a child who is trying new things. This is the truth. And so filter these situations through what is truth. And the truth too is that your child is fearfully and wonderfully made, no matter what their little problem is. They're still fearfully and wonderfully made, and God has a purpose for your child. And He's not finished working on your child. and he's not finished working on you or me yet. Praise God. So I hope that that filter of thinking about what is true, what is honorable, what's pure, what's lovely will help you as you're addressing these different challenges. Um, and let's think about, as you might be facing some economic challenges for this year. And, as much as we try to fight against it and remember the true meaning of Christmas, the truth of the matter, real reality, I guess, not truth, but reality is that we want to provide gifts for our kids. We want to do that at Christmas time. But the truth is that Christmas really isn't about material things, the number of gifts on the tree. The truth is we can celebrate with chicken thighs for dinner at Christmas just as much as we can celebrate with a big turkey on the table that our kids may or may not even like, or by not even having a meal at all, because um, we just we just need to focus on how we can be grateful and having an attitude of gratefulness and again filtering things through what is true. um, so I hope that just kind of thinking about that will help you to filter any challenges that your family is personally facing through this season, and not just the season. Sometimes this season magnifies it because it doesn't go away. You're dealing with this all the time, and so sometimes being around family, being the schedule being different, busier, just kind of brings it all more to light. Um, so I mentioned this a few seconds ago, but and I know you probably all know this, but there's such power in having an attitude of gratitude. And just there's so many practical ways that you can help to cultivate thankfulness. Um, one thing that we have in our home is a little jar, and just from time to time, when one of us is thankful for something, it could be huge, it could be really small. We just write that down. If you have younger kids, you can. They can dictate to you what they'd like to put in the gratitude jar. And then one thing that we do as a tradition in our family is we take that gratitude jar on Christmas morning and we open it up and we start reading through and reflecting back on how God has blessed us throughout the year. Um, my mom actually used to do that with us, only she had, I think it was like uh, one of those, chewing gum cigar boxes, like a cigar box actually or something. It might have had the bubble gum cigars, I don't remember, but, she covered it with fabric, and then she took yarn and glued the name Jesus on it. So that was our Jesus box, and by the time I graduated from high school, it was looking pretty rough, but but we used that, and, we didn't keep a record of things throughout the year, but about the week before Christmas, we would all have to put something in the Jesus box. And so that's just a way to just refocus and to stay thankful. And then just also just modeling an attitude of Thanksgiving despite challenges. And I think as moms and dads, we can do that in ways we might forget that our kids are watching. When you're in line at Walmart and it's a very long line and you're tired and frustrated, how do you interact with the cashier or the people around you? You modeling and saying, "Thank you so much. I hope you have a great night. Thanks for what you do." That's modeling an attitude of Thanksgiving. And so yeah, just I think all of us, no matter what time of the year it is, it's good to keep that in mind and try to do that. So, I love this as I was going back to Philippians 8, where Paul said, "Keep putting into practice all that you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing." And um, kind of putting that in the context of what we're talking about tonight, it just, spoke to me that we're going to mess up. There are gonna be opportunities when we're gonna mess up, but we're going to, um, really be thinking, oh, I really want everybody wearing pink, or I really want everybody wearing this, and I really want a nice family photo with everybody smiling and holding hands. But my child with special needs doesn't want to hold hands, can't stand to be touched. So, and we just kind of lose it and have a breakdown. But when I thought about this little portion of scripture, keep putting into practice all that you learned, you know, just remind yourself that you are learning. You are not the perfect parent, and God, in His mercy and grace, is helping us to make each day new and have that focus that every day is a new day for God's mercies. And so don't give up on yourself, and don't give up on your child, because your child is still learning, and it's just every day as you're consistently teaching them, training them, working with them, whether that's in academic areas, whether that's in their social interactions, whether that's in language. It's constantly building block upon block upon block upon block. And so you're going to have times when um, people are going to make mistakes, but let's keep putting into practice all that we've learned, and then we'll have that opportunity to just step back and breathe and know, okay, we can start again. We can start again tomorrow. You're not alone in your struggles. You're going to mess up, but God's mercy is new every day. You're not defined by our failures, and we're just going to take one day at a time, maybe sometimes one moment at a time. Really, that is the Christian walk. So then, just kind of to wrap things up here, um, Paul said, when we're doing this, I'm just going to read that again. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if there's anything excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. And whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. And then what will happen? The God of peace will be with you. So as you're entering these weeks that can be filled with activity, filled with our children's really their special needs kind of just being magnified in some situations because of sensory issues, because of all the social interactions, because of the change in schedule, because of all these different things. What we want peace, don't we? And so keeping your eyes on Jesus, asking him, help me to see this the way you see this, Lord. Give me creative ideas for knowing how to handle these situations that I'm going to encounter. And then that the God of peace, when we welcome him into these situations, that's when his peace will come. So, um, that's really what I have for you tonight. I hope it was probably maybe a little less on the practical side, but I think I hope that this will be a real encouragement. And I just think it's so important for that filter. And I know there's one more thing that I was thinking about, um, actually, like that what is truth is so important. Sometimes when our kids are having meltdowns, sometimes actually counselors will say, teach your child to really key into their five senses right then. At that moment when they're having a meltdown, their system is telling them, danger, danger, I must fight, or I must flee, or I must freeze, the fight. Flight or freeze. Their brain's telling them one thing. So what you can do as a parent, you can say, tell me, do you see the puppy right now? Do you see the dog right now? Oh yeah, there's the dog, and maybe the dog will come over. Oh, do you feel him? He's trying to give you a kiss. He's licking you. Do you feel him? Let's pet him. Oh, his soft. So we're talking about, like, we can see, what do you hear? Oh, listen, he's panting. Can you hear him? And what that's doing, what counselors and therapists will say that that's doing is that's helping the child to get into what's real. What's going on in their brain? That's a lie. That's not real. They're not in danger. There's no need to panic, and we need to help bring them back into reality again. So that's just like a really practical example that I probably shouldn't share because it's more than what I even know or understand. I'm not a therapist, but I see that in my own walk that we need to speak truth to ourselves and not focus on what the enemy's trying to do to derail us. I can't homeschool anymore. This is too much. This is too stressful. We're just not going to meet with family this year. No, that's a lie. There are ways that we can handle all these different situations, and I think it's just so important to focus on the truth that God's word provides to us. So if there are questions, or just comments, we can just keep it going here. Oh.
Thank you for sharing all that, Krista. Two big takeaway points here is one, thank you so much for mentioning that we could have chicken wings instead of turkey. I love that. My struggling learner, who is now 20 years old, actually asked for homemade chicken strips this year.
Okay.
And you know what? I said yes.
Yes.
But two, thank you for mentioning the identity portion. I think that's what got me through all those years of hardship was that we're not defined by our failures and we're not defined by what others think of us when our child is having a meltdown. I
Mhm.
had to keep telling that to myself that
Mhm.
I am a child of God. My child is a child of God, and they're going through a process. We all were, and these are not things that can be fixed overnight,
Correct.
and I
Right.
needed to hang on to the Lord during those moments, but not allow myself to think that I'm, defined by the circumstances around me. So thank you so much for saying that, Krista.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think just as humans, our carnal self, we want to protect ourselves. I mean,
Mhm.
we're parents, so we want to protect our child, but sometimes we are also just bottom line, we often fall into wanting to protect ourselves and our own identity and what people think about us, and
Mhm.
yeah, that isn't a healthy way. Sometimes that might seem the easier way because maybe we don't have to confront
Yeah.
as much, but there's growth when we do have those conversations, with family. I'm thinking about, family especially,
Yeah.
and friends as we're getting together and having gatherings through the holiday season. So yeah, I feel it. I understand. And that's why I mentioned that,
Mhm.
because it's something that I've faced myself. And I have to remind myself of that truth that um, my children don't define me, whether they're
Mhm.
you know, blowing my socks off, and my
Yep.
buttons are bursting
Yep.
because of all the amazing things they do. That doesn't define me. And if they are struggling, that doesn't define me. And it really doesn't define them either, because God sees way past that. And that's not who they
Yes.
are really in Him.
Yes. I think we have a comment in the chat.
Okay.
How can mothers be encouraged that taking off a month be beneficial for the child?
Mm-hmm.
And not a fan of turkey, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be unique. And like I was mentioning before, taking off a month may not be a great idea for your child. If you have you have every child is unique. And I don't want to say that this is always the case, because it isn't, but many times children that are on the autism spectrum, they crave structure. They love structure. They love routine. They like everything to be the same every day. And then maybe on the opposite end of that spectrum, you might have a child who they've been fighting structure with you all year long.
Mhm.
Maybe they are on that ADHD kind of end of the spectrum, where structure is something they probably need, but you need to help provide that. And so, if you took off the whole month, and in reality, that's going to be more like 2.5 weeks, because most people are going to take off a couple of weeks at Christmas time into the new year anyway. But if you took that off, that it could be very beneficial and very, very helpful, just for the whole attitudes, your mental health, just your ability to kind of breathe a little bit. And as I was trying to describe earlier, even if you take those weeks off from textbooks, that doesn't mean that your kids can't glean something during that time if you're intentional about what you're going to be doing. Yes, we're not going to have school as usual, but and you don't even have to maybe even say this to your children, but mama, you've got a plan
Mhm.
and you're going to be intentional. I'm going to work on character building, or I'm going to work on scripture memorization, or we're going to work on, all those different things that I talked about earlier. So you have to make that work for your unique situation. But those are just a few reasons why taking off a few weeks could be helpful. Travel comes to mind too. I heard that
Mhm.
before, that sometimes that just taking off a few weeks helps families to be able to get to places that they need to be during that time of year too. So that's another thing. Is there another question or comment?
I love the suggestions about the alternative activities, just changing the way you're doing things. Don't change the schedule, but the way. But apart from what you have said, how would you encourage a mom who just fears doing that because she fears she's not going to finish the curriculum timeline at the end of
Mm,
the year? You know, she won't be
mm-hmm.
able to check off
Yeah.
all the boxes. What would you say
Mm-hmm.
to a mom or dad in that situation?
Well, I hope you don't think I'm crazy. This is how I how I did this for myself, because I'm a rule follower and I like to know that I did everything that I was supposed to do. I also like, for us, homeschooling materials, that's a sacrifice to be able to purchase those. I want to make the most of them, so I don't want to buy something and then not use it. But um, what I sometimes did, just to kind of play a little bit of a mind game with myself, I just went ahead and I took a pencil and I just X'd it out. So like that's done. And and
Yeah.
here's the thing, like I was saying, even if you step away from the curriculum, well, let me say this. I'm sorry, it's a little bit scattered, but honestly, your curriculum is not your textbook. Okay. Curriculum, in the truest sense of the word, when you're talking to an educator, your curriculum can recognize rhyming words, can break words into syllables, can add the correct punctuation to the end of a sentence. That's curriculum. Okay. And so you can still meet your curriculum, but just in a different way. And so what I would do is I would just kind of, I mean, it's not going to work out perfectly, but you can, if you are doing some type of unit study and within that, they're writing a good paragraph or they're writing a recipe, a step by step. Well, then maybe in March, your curriculum program has a similar lesson. Just mark that off. You did it. You did it during Christmas. You didn't do it on the same timeline that they did, but you've already done it. So it's not, again, it's not going to be a perfect match, but as a homeschool parent, you can make those decisions. I tell this story, but it is so funny to me. It was several years ago when I was taking phone calls from parents. Um, I had this lady, she was from New York, and it was mid-August. It was very early when a lot of homeschoolers might be starting the school year. And I will never forget, she called me up and she was so upset. She's like, "Okay, well, I'm about ready to quit. I'm done." And I'm like, "Oh my, what
Mhm.
happened? What's going on?" She's like, "My teenage son, he's in his bedroom, the door's closed. I'm done. I've been crying and I just thought I would call you." I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, I'm trying to teach this lesson on spelling, and they're wanting my son to break the spelling words into syllables, and he just can't do that. He's struggling with that." And then I said, "Oh, what's going on with your son?" She's like, "Well, he's on the autism spectrum." I'm like, "Oh, well, does
Mhm.
he know how to spell the words?" "Yes, he knows exactly how to spell all those words." And I'm like, "Well, then do you really need to teach syllabication for this lesson for him to learn his spelling words?" She's like, "No, I don't." And I'm like, "Skip it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that." And so she was like, "Thank you." Okay. And she hung up. So just sometimes a curriculum program is going to say, "All right, this is multi-step multiplication, and
Mhm.
they'll have one lesson on that. And then the next day they'll say, this is multi-step multiplication, but this time we're going to do it this way. That's really designed, and a lot of our homeschool curriculum is still like this. It's really designed for a classroom setting where you're going to have kids that are learning all
Mhm.
different ways. And so you don't have to do every single lesson. If your child got that
Yes.
concept the first time, you don't need to teach two and three different ways to do something. So that's just one example of how even if there are 180 lessons in your math curriculum, you may not, by the end of the year, actually have your student do all 180. Maybe they just do
Mhm.
170 or 165, and that's okay if they've mastered the main concepts that are the curriculum for math that year. That was a very long answer, but I hope that that helps free you up a little bit.
That was great. Yes, thank you. What about the parent that has a struggling learner and other children? And
Right.
you're trying to juggle, everyone's curriculum. How do you advise a parent?
Well, I think giving yourself grace in that a lot of times when you have kids that are pretty close in age too, um, one thing that helps to, and even if they're you have a unique learner in that mix of kiddos, um, really trying to bring everybody together for history, for science, for Bible. A lot of people will do that when they have several kids that are, and then teaching English, um, language arts, math, those are going to be more individualized. And so that makes things a little bit more manageable. But also, I think being able to, and this is just another reason why you might want to think about changing things up as far as being so structured during these weeks, just for the sake of your typically developing kids, because they may need that break. Maybe even more so than what your child that's a struggling learner needs the break. And so, um, talking to them about it and saying, and talking to your child that has special needs and saying, yes, we're going to just keep maintaining. I know that that's your comfort zone. You can keep working through math, and I'm going to work with you, but I need you to know that this is the plan for brothers and sisters. They might be doing something different during that time. So I think, Adlin, really I learned this as a classroom teacher, and I tried to even, I had an aha moment a few months into starting to homeschool my own children, is that really talking to your kids about the plan is really important. Like, don't just decide on your own, okay, I'm taking off the first 2 weeks of December. We're going to do unit studies. And then December comes and you just start that. And they're like, oh, no, if you have a child that's a struggling learner, before December 1st, sit them down and say, okay, everybody, let's have a family meeting. We're going to change things up, and I want you to be aware of it. These are the books that we're going to be reading. This is how we're going to still stay on our schedule, but we're going to be using different materials. And this is our tub. We're going to put all of our textbooks in the tub, but just for December. And then January 1st, we'll start back
Mhm.
up again. So I think there's just so much value in taking the time, even though it seems like it's a waste of time. It's not, because you're preparing. Um, Take the time to give everybody a heads up, to help them understand where we're going to keep things, what materials we're going to be using, how the schedule is going to change a little bit, but you've got it all laid out for them. And you might even need to practice. I taught kindergartners for a long time in public school, when I was a classroom teacher, and I would spend the first week. We didn't even open whatever materials I had to teach. We spent all kinds of time moving from one table to the next, walking in a line, showing them this is where the cafeteria is, this is where we keep our crayons, this is where I had to teach them all those kinds of things. And I think sometimes as mamas, we go in and we're like, oh, I got this all fixed up. I love it. This is my homeschool room. It looks so great. And your kids have no idea how your system works. And you don't take the time to teach them because it doesn't occur to you to do it. Just like you didn't teach them where the silverware was. I mean, like it's just that was your system. And so I really encourage parents to take the time teach your system, teach them what you're going to be teaching them. Talk to them about what your plans are, how things are going to change, and that'll hopefully make things go more smoothly.
I love that. Preparing them, speaking to them, and visually, I love that you said that, visually allowing them to see we're putting our textbooks here on the side. We'll come back to them, but they're
Mhm.
there. They're not going anywhere. We'll get
Right.
back to them in a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's great. I love that.
Okay. Anybody?
Anybody?
Christina, can we pick your brain?
Hi. Yeah, I was just thinking about how to handle when when there is something unexpected. So like, for example, if we have to stop what we're doing in school or we have to start it later than anticipated because of, holiday related activities,
Mhm.
and just kind of how to handle that. But I think you kind of covered it in the sense of saying, like, if you prepare them before the season and tell them, hey, there's going to be times probably that we're going to start later, or that that our school is going to look different. And I think that would probably make everything go better,
Mhm.
and kind of also using that time to teach them how to be grateful, how to be helpful. So like if we have to stop and go somewhere to pick something up and kind of use it as like a schooling time. So I think you kind of led me to that answer there of
Mhm.
how to try and avoid the meltdowns.
Mhm. How old are your children, or is your child that has
Eight
special
and
needs?
nine.
8 and 9.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
one thing that I love using too, especially if kids really crave schedule and structure, is get a pocket chart. You know what I mean by a pocket chart?
Yes.
And then you can buy commercial schedules, but you could just buy some sentence strips, and it's nice to have a pocket chart, because then if there is a change, you can bring your child over that really loves the schedule and say, okay, I know we usually do our read aloud time here, but because grandma has this appointment and we've got to go, whatever, we're going to move that down here. You want to move it? And
Mhm.
then let's make a new strip to go on our calendar for today that says doctor's appointment, and we'll put that here at 9 o'clock, where we usually have our read aloud time. And so sometimes that helps, even though it is a change. They can see, okay, mom is still taking into account, and at 11 we're going to do story time, and it helps them to
Okay.
see that. But I love having
Thank you.
a pocket chart to do that. A
Thank you.
visual schedule basically is what it is. Mhm.
Or dry erase board. That always
Dry
helps for
erase
us
board
too.
works too. Yes. Yeah.
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 Yes, it definitely helps. Yeah, my kids, we have the dry erase calendar, but I think that because there's only so much I can fit on there, it might be better to do like maybe what you were saying, the charts. So I
The
might be able
pocket
to
Pocket
add
charts.
chart.
some more.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Thanks for that question.
Well, thank you so much, Krista. You always have so much to share with us, and I'd love for you to come back and keep sharing stuff with us in the next,
Sure.
hopefully in next year. Um, but thank you, and thank you, Christina, for being here, and thank you, Kirk,
Yes.
for being
Yes.
behind the
Thank you.
scenes and helping us out. But thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And unless there's other questions, then just want to thank everyone and hope you have a great night.
All right.
Likewise.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. It's a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Uh,
you, Christina.
mhm.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.